Hello, Waya family, and welcome again from Kampala, Uganda. My name is Antonia, and I welcome you dearly to the newest Waya Collective live stream. It's been 2 weeks since I've been last live, and I missed it a little bit, but I'm really excited to really be back on track. And before we get into this very interesting interview, I want to give you a couple of updates of what actually happened in the last 2 weeks at Waya Collective, because it's actually been quite a lot. Well, the main thing that we've really worked on is actually the company on ground and the first consumer brand on ground. A couple of people may have already seen a new Twitter account called Waya, that looks very different than the Waya Collective Twitter account. And this is actually the Twitter account for the first consumer fashion brand in Uganda. So we are really progressing with the first brand, the first franchise. And just to give you a little bit of background around that, to understand what is this brand about, and how does this fit into Waya Collective and the vision that we have. So our purpose is to build local industry. And for that, we are building a platform to create and finance franchises. And we are now building the very first franchise, which is the first brand, and later on the first local factory to supply the brand. And this first brand is now this fashion brand called Waya. And don't be confused. These are that in that way connected. So Waya Collective is the crypto, the platform, but Waya is this consumer brand, which is specifically for fashion in Uganda. And you can follow this Twitter account to see more, though it's really more directed towards our direct consumers in Uganda. And this is really the first brand of many. It's the first franchise, and later on, other people will be able to replicate this brand in this first factory in other countries, in other places in Africa, and even beyond. And all of these new factories and new franchises will be financed by RealFi. So you as a crypto investor can invest in this network of new factories and new brands. So Waya Collective is really much bigger than this first brand, even though each brand will also have its own business, its own franchise. And all of this is really working towards the goal to enable to build thriving local industries. And we just believe that this franchise model in combination with crypto has really the power to do that, to build local industry, really scalable and really fast. And later on, we will have many more brands, many more franchises on the platform, which people can contribute, and anyone who owns the Waya token can invest in them. So that is really quite important, and we're really excited to have now this very first brand to go through the steps of what is it like to build a brand in an African country, how do you capture Ugandan African consumers, and also what are the steps to actually build a franchise here. To really enable others later on to do the same. That is really the goal for us, to validate these hypotheses that we have. And we're going to have a launch event actually for this brand in May. So really keep up to date. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Of course, mainly the attendees in Uganda, but I think it's really showing that we're really doing a lot on ground, and that we're really an on-ground first project, I would say. Another news is or update is really that our community contributor team is really growing. And first of all, we want to thank everyone who is in the contributor team. You can now find all of these amazing contributors on our team page on our website. And like we talked about in the last live stream with Simon, we're already kind of building our first mini DAO, and we are open for a lot of people to actually contribute and earn from the DAO, from the Waya DAO. And yeah, it's really amazing to see what is coming out of there. So the contributors are already coming up with projects, really working on their own things, and it's really just amazing to see that. And yeah, actually, this live stream will be a lot about that too. Last live stream, I talked to Simon, who's our DAO architect, about more the philosophy of how we build our DAO and why. And now we're actually going to talk about how exactly we're going to do that, and how the governance can be built. And yeah, I have a guest on for today who has way more experience in how to build such organizations, network organizations, as we call them. Rasmus Rahe, and I would say, let's get him on here. Hello,
Hi,
Rasmus. How
Antonia.
are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really great to have you. We're more talking about organizations, network organizations, DAOs, and the company that you work at, Resourceful Humans, is a consulting company based in Berlin who has really been focusing on building or help people to build network organizations for more than 10 years now. And you are the head of resourcefulness at Resourceful Humans. So that's really sounds really interesting. Sounds really cool. Can you give me a small introduction to yourself? Who are you, first of all? Yeah, what makes you interested in this topic?
Yeah, so as you said, my name's Rasmus. I'm also currently joining from Africa, from South Africa. So Resourceful Humans, we're based in Berlin. I'm also usually based in Berlin, but I grew up in South Africa. So I'm here over the East seeing family. So on the one hand, what really got me interested is the fact that you work that you constructing this DAO with a focus on Africa. And on the other hand, you mentioned already, network organizations is really what we do at Resourceful Humans. So I guess I'll give a short introduction to myself before giving an introduction to Resourceful Humans. I've been with RH, as we like to call ourselves, for just over a year. My title, Head of Resourcefulness, is something I chose myself. Generally speaking, we are a network organization, and all of us are entrepreneurs. So I do different things at Resourceful Humans. And one of the things I do is partnerships, managing partnerships. And this is really a partnership I'm super excited about. And I think the reason that will get clear as we continue our conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really amazing. We've been working together for quite some time now. And what actually got you interested in building network organizations in the first place?
I think I'll start with how I joined Humans. I was at a classic software as a service sales job before joining RH, also a company in Berlin. And I had some issues that were largely around, I would call, bureaucracy and artificial hierarchies that I felt ended up hampering my productivity and actually ended up decreasing potential results I could get. And so I started looking for a different job, and I came across this company that was promising pretty much an open forum to contribute as an entrepreneur, and that's what really got me interested. So before I joined Resourceful Humans, I didn't know much about network organizations, but what attracted me was this idea that I could contribute and learn as an entrepreneur in I'll call it in inverted commas, a safe space. And I haven't looked back since. So we are in some ways a consulting company, and we come from a spin around for 10 years of a consulting company, but we're shifting towards a tech company. So what we've been doing with consulting, we are creating tech, and we have created some awesome tech that Waya is also using. And through using this technology, through working with it, I understand more about what a network organization is every day. What really, really gets me going is this idea of contributing as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think it's for me. I think what is inspiring is I'm also an entrepreneur, and I couldn't imagine kind of working in a different way, because I'm also creative, but I believe that, a lot of people also just work a normal hierarchical job probably. But yeah, I think the self, yeah, what you can kind of create for yourself, and who you can kind of become in as an entrepreneur, or working in an entrepreneurial way, is is really powerful. And can you maybe, for those who have no idea what we're actually talking about, explain what is a network organization?
Yeah, I can. So first of all, let me say that there are different interpretations and definitions that you'll find, even if you were to search online now. Also, with people we work with, clients, partners, etc., there are different interpretations of what it really means. I'm going to go through our definition of a network organization. And basically, for us, a network organization is I've got it here on the left written down for me as well, and I like to look at this definition regularly to remind myself that it's an organization that can all individuals around a unique purpose and a clear set of priorities. It's the first part of the definition. So purpose is clear, priorities are clear for all contributors, entrepreneurs, individuals, and call it. There's no artificial hierarchy. The word artificial there is important because there are emerging natural hierarchies. That always happens when people work together and contribute together. Information flows freely. Transparency is important. That's less of an issue for a DAO, which is pretty transparent by definition and by nature. This is something that can be one of the most difficult parts of being a network, or becoming one for companies coming from the corporate side. And the last part, small autonomous crews peer commit to contribute meaningfully to their customers. So it's a peer-to-peer network, and contributions towards customers are peer committed. So where I used to work with a manager who told me what to do, I can pretty much decide what to do if I want to towards a customer, and I do so with my peers. Things are agreed on a peer-to-peer basis and validated on a peer-to-peer basis. It's also really important because I think some people have this idea that network organizations are wild, leaderless environments, but it's actually quite the opposite. Leadership is something super important if you're working in a peer-to-peer way. And going back to this idea of no artificial hierarchy, hierarchies are emergent. People do work, and they often depend on competencies. There's things that I'm competent in that people in our network organization will come towards me, and I'll go towards others for other topics. Yeah, so going back to that definition, contributors, individuals, members, whatever you want to call it, connect around a clear set of purpose and priorities. There's no artificial hierarchy. There's transparency, information flows freely, and you peer commit to meaningfully contribute towards customers, or stakeholders in this case for DAOs.
Amazing. That's a good explanation, I would say. Can you give maybe an example of an existing network organization, or how it is as a member to work in one, so that it's a bit more clear?
Yes.
What this translates into?
So I'll Resourceful Humans is the example. I'll explain a little bit in practices and as examples to make it more clear what that looks like. If we talk about existing ones, what we do is we look at really companies that are network organizations now, that have been in the past. Some have been for a period of time and then aren't anymore. And we take the things that made those companies work successfully, and we use those learnings in our tools and in our approach. So, there's companies like HP, which started as network organizations. HP isn't one anymore. There's big companies now that are network organizations. One of the ones that are better known is probably Patagonia. You can talk about WL Gore, so that's Gore Tech. There's a textiles that some of us might know or wear, for also outdoor clothing. Hire is an example in China. You have Handelsbanken, so you have financial sector example in Scandinavia. You have Valve, which is an extremely successful video game company. And you have more examples in that of companies that are currently operating like that. What that looks like, and now I'll talk about Resourceful Humans again. Or I can even just mention something, WL Gore, because it's such a big one. It's so impressive to do it at that size. You have intrapreneurs. So whereas in classic companies, you get hired, you get given a title, and you get to have a pretty good idea what you should and have to bring to the table. There you get hired based on your profile, on your fit, and on your potential competencies. But you get hired as an intrapreneur and can set up projects or join projects at will. It's quite similar to Resourceful Humans. I was hired for certain competencies and certain skills that I bring to the table, of course, and for a cultural fit. But once I joined Resourceful Humans, I'm in as it says in the comment, in this safe space where I can create. Now, some people will call them contribution. Some people call them projects. We tend to call them contributions. I can start contributions. This is, projects, basically something that I want to contribute towards a customer. I want to contribute towards a stakeholder, something I want to add. And I can invite people to it. And I can invite people in the organization. So these are other entrepreneurs working for Resourceful Humans. And then we work together and we complete a contribution in a project. And then that way we contribute towards our customers. Whilst I can also create these, I have other crew members, other entrepreneurs creating contributions, creating projects that I can join. I get invited to some as well. And I always have the freedom to say, I accept this project. I'll work with you on this. So you could invite me, Antonio, to a project and I can work, or I can say, you know what, I don't feel like working on this. My workload is too high. It doesn't seem like something I want to do. And then you'll invite someone else. So the way we contribute towards our customers is peer-to-peer. It's not top-down. And I think that's the biggest difference. And again, this is what I said, it's what really gets me going is the space of entrepreneurship. And this is a really good thing because I think anyone in the stream and in the chat, and you as well will know from your past that generally people at all levels have the best ideas and really have the information to be able to contribute towards customers.
Yeah.
It's really difficult for 1, 2, 3, a small number of people at the top to make all decisions of what's going to be valuable towards customers at any given time. And in a network organization, you do this on a flat basis. It's a peer basis. There is absolutely zero, and this is this artificial part, there's zero hierarchy towards creating a plan, a project, a contribution of something that you want to bring to the table, something you want to do.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. I think it like the way of working that you describe, reminds me of working in a startup, in a very small startup, maybe in a founding team. Everyone knows the vision, so it's very clear the goal where we want to go, and everyone just takes up what they think is necessary to do now, and then you can agree, okay, does that make sense? But everyone can really take the lead and develop things that they believe are best for this general shared purpose. And building a network organization is, for me, I think really scaling that up into big organizations, because I think a lot of organizations that started small and started working like this, they then developed in these huge complexes of hierarchies, as you say, artificial hierarchies with all of these different managements. And then I think the people that feel that they do actually have no power, they probably also resent at some point, because they're there to do a job anyways, right? So why would they even contribute?
to pick up on 2 points that you said, that this idea of at a startup, everyone knows the shared values. And I think you used the word vision and purpose. This going back to the definition I just spoke about having a unique purpose and a clear set of priorities. This is super crucial in this environment where anyone can start a contribution, because if your purpose of your organization is not clear and the priorities have not been clearly defined and not transparent to all, then it becomes a bit of a mess, because then you have contributions that are going, if the company or the organization is going one way and this decision has been made, you can't afford to have contributions, projects, development going in different directions. So yeah, clear vision
Exactly.
or purpose, clear set of priorities is crucial in having this environment.
Yeah, and everyone also needs to understand it to be able to contribute in the right way. And I think that's something that I had to understand also first when we started this collaboration. I think my first question was like, how do we ensure that everyone is still working towards that goal that the company has, and not in any way direction that they just find funny or interesting? And I think that this communication also then, like this need to communicate this vision and to really make everyone truly understand, also again holds so much power, because once you understand and you feel like you own the vision as well, people will have these ideas of what can I actually do, what are my ideas, what do I see in my daily work that can really help the bigger picture and not just my tiny space. Yeah, I think.
And that's sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's exactly why we've been moving towards tech, and we have built tech, because having this clear and this communication part works much easier when it's built into tools and it's built into things that you use every day. So in our tool that Waya is using, to say it, to say it simply without going into too many details, to set up a contribution, again, project development, whatever you want to call it, you have to actually go through which of our priorities does this fall under. And every time you set it up, the purpose is right there at the top for you to see, so that it's constantly in your head, you're constantly reminded of it, and you actually have to go through and select a priority to do anything. And these priorities change. The purpose generally stays quite similar. Purpose can change, but change more often as an organization grows and develops.
Yeah. I think we talked a lot about what it is and why it is better in many ways. What do you think are like the most difficult things to really implement it? Why is not everyone doing it? Not every organization. And how do you also try to solve it with your tool?
I had to smile because, first of all, it's not only difficult to implement, it can be difficult to be in a network organization. When we say it like this, it sounds like I like to say sunshine and roses, and it can really be sunshine and roses. There are many days where I can't think of working in any other way, but it's not always easy, because if you don't have a chain of command, a clear set of instructions, it takes a lot of self-leadership and self-organization of the contributors. So it's not only difficult in the sort of moving towards their transformation implementation, it's also difficult in practice. Going back towards difficult as in it requires a lot of hard work. Going back towards the implementation, I would say it's harder to become a network organization than to start as one. So it's harder to transform if you're an organization that has rigid hierarchies, that has worked in a certain way for a certain period. It's harder to transform that. And I think that's clear why, because it requires a change of rules. It requires a change of mindset of every single employee. We don't like that word, every single individual in the organization. And this is extremely difficult. But there are companies, there are clients of ours actively trying and doing this. So I think here we can see that, this is something really attractive if you're going to go about and try that. I think we spoke about startups before that sometimes naturally work in a sort of way like this, because organizations are quite small, and then as they become more complex and add different layers of individuals, employees, they move away from this because they think that everything needs to go towards a process. Processes can be good, but layers of bureaucracy aren't. So
Yeah.
it's also difficult if you start like this to stay this way. Why is it difficult? I mean, there are different reasons for different organizations. And some, we see this through our clients, through different examples on the daily. Sometimes it's simply like a lack of trust towards individuals in the organization. So you feel the need as a manager, as a higher level, contributor, to put layers of control over others. Simon in the last episode spoke about centers. People feel the need to add centers and to add different layers because this will organize people. I mean, it's funny. When I was at an organization where there was a request before the coronavirus pandemic happened for individuals to work remotely, and this request was rejected because top management thought that it'll just be a chaos and that no one will contribute, that they no longer have control over what people are doing. They felt the absolute need to micromanage and couldn't imagine any sort of other situation. Then the pandemic happened and we were all forced to go home. They were forced to close the offices and our numbers rose. People worked more. So in some cases, it's this idea that managers have that they need to exercise certain controls that they think are necessary to maintain, improve, achieve their objectives. And in some cases, there's added levels of complexity. But in many cases, when you take away certain levels of control, people actually contribute at least the same or even more. I think one part I left out of the first part of the, defining what it is we're talking about, to make it super basic, if the viewers should remember one sentence about what a network organization is about, it's about creating the atmosphere where we can make it as simple as possible for people to contribute. It should be as easy as possible for people to make a contribution. That's the essence of it. What hinders this? Bureaucracy. I mean, I spoke about my personal example at my previous company where rules came in the way of me actually being successful towards the company. Many different things hinder this. So to become a network organization, you have to get rid of these things that hinder it. And getting rid of bureaucracy is very, very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. And I also think now that you were talking about the difficulties and how, some companies kind of naturally evolve in, in this very bureaucratical and hierarchical complexity where it's not, where everyone just has their very defined rules and roles. And I was thinking about what is the natural way? I mean, of course, there's no natural way, but why do they evolve naturally in these organizations? Of course, one, it's the things that have been maybe taught or how it's always been done. But I think do you think it also requires like a lot of like everyone to really be personally kind of aware and really maybe have a let's say not such a huge ego, for example, to be like, yeah, in some ways I may be better than this intern because I know more, but in other ways this intern can also tell me what to do because they have other experiences somewhere, for example. Do you think also that is something that a network organization requires and why it may be so difficult to actually keep it that way, because it always needs everyone to be really aware, everyone to be really kind of respectful, and everyone also, no one can really be kind of in their role. Okay, I have my position, I cannot be fired, that's it. Whatever I do, like everyone always has to prove themselves. Is that what I'm contributing? Is it actually doing good to the company?
Yeah, I just thought of an example as you were asking that question from HP. It's one of my favorite examples where this is something that happened in already network organization. And HP didn't do it by announcing it, this is how we're going to work. HP had a set of 2 leaders who really believed that it was their role, top management, to set the overall objective and then get out the way and let people execute on that. So that just by making that single decision, it took 2 leaders to drop their ego, as you said, and make that decision and then let people contribute. But even in that organization, there's a story, there's an example, without going into too much detail and trying to make it as quick as possible, of an individual who had the idea of a contribution where he wanted to make this portable computational device, something we today call a calculator, and requested funding for it, and was rejected, and he had a lot of difficulty, and he was actually given the direct instruction, which we don't like in network organizations, and which goes against this overall purpose of the founders to say, set the overall objective and get out the way. Someone said, no, you're not doing this. And this individual ignored this and said, you know what, I am doing this. I'm just going to do it without your funding. And out of this came the Casio calculator, which is one of the defining moments in the history of the organization. So sorry, the HP calculator. And there's so many examples like that. What you require is leaders. I mean, if you are a normal organization and you want to change, you require, I mentioned it again, ego. Maybe you can talk about different things, but you require people letting go of control. Does that involve dropping ego? Maybe. Does it involve other things? Surely. Does it involve trust? Yes. Does it involve transparency? Yes. But overall, it's about letting go of control of the top people who have control right now. I think in the previous answer, I left out a little bit how we help organizations move towards this space. And, one of the first things we did with Waya, and one of the things we do with all our clients, is we talk about purpose and priorities. And in many cases, we have leadership teams and we ask them, how clear is your purpose? And they say, yeah, it's very clear. It's very clear, for everyone knows our purpose. Okay, can you write it down for us? And then we get 6 different answers from a group of 8 top-level managers. So there's this idea that it's clear to everyone, but it's not even clear to the top level. We have the same with priorities. Can you write down your top 3 priorities? Yeah, very clear. Okay, we have 16 different answers. So one of the first things, and it seems so simple, but it's not, in practice, it's not, because everyone has their one vision on, this is on my table, this is what I do on a day-to-day. And it's sometimes difficult to look out of that and look back at the big picture of the organization. So often we have to start at the very big picture, what some people would consider the basic stuff. Why are we even doing this? And we have this sometimes. Why are we even doing this? A little bit irritated. Yeah, because it's super important. It's the base of the definition. So that's one of the first things we did, Waya. And Simon, as the DAO architect, is who I worked with on this. And it was super interesting to see the priorities. And also, we established a timeline of when we look at the priorities again to see, are they still accurate? Do they need to change? And there the tooling becomes super important, because if you do change the priorities, or if you've set, I mentioned before that through the Resourceful Humans tool that we call Network, it's always there. The priorities are there in your face. You can't miss them. When they're changed, impractical, especially in a DAO or in a network organization where you don't have daily stand-ups and you don't have constant communication, and you try and step back and let people work, the changes are very visible even without this. So they're visible through the tool. So we really start at the top level. A lot of the communication is less formal, but is constantly in your face through using a tool that you use to work together. Okay, and then other aspects come in that are also in the definition that I mentioned, aspects of transparency that you need to work on, moving away from artificial hierarchy. What does that actually mean to the way you interact and engage with other people? And then ultimately, going towards this culture of peer commitments rather than top-down.
Yeah, I see. And we're going to come back to this topic of the DAO in just a minute, I would say. But I maybe want to hear from you what is, because we talked a lot about what is a network organization, what is maybe difficult about implementing it, but what are the chances, what are the possibilities that you unlock by building your organization as a network organization? What is really the benefit?
So the benefit comes when you step back and you let people contribute, and you create a safe space for people to contribute towards their absolute best. The benefits comes in terms of improved performance. I know in the last episode, Simon also spoke about attractiveness of employers that are network organizations, spoke about some companies that have higher application rates than Harvard. So yeah, they can become better places to work for individuals. You have a higher number of applicants because people want to work in this type of environment. And there are a lot of benefits that come with, that side of the individual. But on an organization, bigger picture, if you have people contributing towards their best, you have improved performance. We've seen this in a lot of the examples of network organizations that we look at. Another thing we do at Resourceful Humans, which is something that I find super exciting, we work with virtual reality. We have a virtual reality game called the VR Dive that is based on a real story. And I'll just use this story to talk about what's in it for, what can happen when you work in this way. It's based on, I'll try to keep it short, but the story is based on a US Navy submarine called the US Santa Fe and a guy called David Marquet, who was a Navy captain. I mean, this is the most hierarchical environment you can think of. It's a career military man, worked his way up this hierarchy to become one of the few nuclear submarine captains in the world. But he had a bit of an issue because to become a nuclear submarine captain, you have to learn a submarine for 2 years to become the biggest expert at the submarine. And 2 weeks before he was about to join a boat that he'd learned past year how to captain, he was asked to join a different boat that had the worst performance in the fleet and had a captain that went into early retirement as a result. And he joined this boat, and in the first 2 weeks he realized that he can't be the know-it-all or the captain on the boat because he doesn't really know how this boat works. He didn't have time to study it. And he sat down and he looked at what is he going to do to sort this out. And I'll use a quick example. He stood on the bridge on the first day that they were meant to go out on the water, and he told the second officer to put the ship into second gear. Second officer told the third officer, put the ship into second gear. Third officer told the navigator, put the sub into second gear. Navigator does nothing. Captain looks down and says, "What's happening? Sir, this boat doesn't have a second gear, sir." And then he looks at his second and third officer and he says, "Well, did you guys know this?" He says, "Yeah." They say, "Yeah, it's not our job to question your orders, it's our job to execute them." And he stood back and he realized he had a big problem. And what he did is he came across this concept of network organization, and he stood back, changed the Navy rules in this boat, did something that he wasn't even technically allowed to do, and let people contribute and gave the authority to where the information is. So it gave the navigator the authority to make decisions on the navigation, gave everyone the authority to make decisions on their stations and their roles. And the reason it's a great story, we built a VR game around it so people can experience it for themselves. And the captain sold a best-selling novel is because this submarine, I mean, they do simulation games to test, to see results. A year later, they got the best. This was the worst performing ship pretty much in the history of the Navy. A year later, they were the best performing ship in the Navy that year. And 2 years after they started this transformation, they were the best. They had the best performance of all time that the Navy had ever seen. So, yeah, that's just an example that I love it. That's why we built a game around it. But there are many examples like this in the most hierarchical environments where you think, this is not I mean, we often have clients who say, "This sounds lovely, but we work in sector X and Y. We can't do this." Yeah, well, David Marquet did it in the Navy and achieved the best results the Navy had ever seen.
Yeah. Awesome. Really amazing. I think how I would describe it or summarize it, it's really about giving the goal and the overall vision and purpose to everyone, and then everyone can explore their potential in it. And we all have an amazing potential that is never defined by one role. Um, Humans are complex and we evolve and grow. And because everyone has the space to do that, and because there's no, yeah, these hierarchies which limit this progress, in the end, it's just a better performing organization.
And you saw
And
that
that,
there's one part of the story in the Navy. Of course, the navigator is absolutely proficient at navigation. That's why he's the navigator on a nuclear submarine. So in this example, there is that part. That's something that's sometimes worry about. Well, what if the front end? I mean, what does this story that I just practically mean to someone like Waya, potential companies who are interested in going this direction? Does it mean that the software engineers choose when to ship a certain version of the product? Yes. Does it mean that the salesman can sign deals up to a certain amount, up to any amount? Well, yes. And what if they don't have that knowledge? Generally, and this is the part that I find so exciting as well, generally it means that the people in the organization, in the network organization, very quickly rise to that level where they are proficient in making these decisions. So it's not necessarily a status quo that I'm going to change to a network organization today and everyone's going to 100% successfully make all decisions and it's all going to be great. But people move in that direction very quickly. I've seen it at Resourceful Humans. I've seen it in a lot of interesting examples. I've seen, just off the top of my head, I saw an applicant that wasn't happy with our recruitment process. And after she joined, she took the contribution of recruitment and changed the whole process. And now it's good. I've seen it in other fields. And this is the type of environment you want to create. In a DAO at Waya, you'll see it where people might not be happy with something. And instead of this culture that we see very often in the corporate world right now, where you complain about it, you get angry about it, people change it and they contribute and they change it themselves with their peers.
yeah.
And that's this performance.
Yeah, and they're the best ones to do it because they know exactly what it's about. Amazing. So we talked a little bit about DAOs. What does a network organization and a DAO? Where is the relation? Why is crypto and blockchain so interesting to you?
So I think the first thing we have to talk about is this idea of autonomous organization. So network organizations come in very different, I'll say, levels. So you can talk about, we try and be as radical, I'll say in a corporate sense, radical as we can. We're trying to be as network as we can and take away as many processes, structures, artificial things as possible. What's exciting about a DAO is that beyond being radical in this sense, they are so by definition. So they are absolutely autonomous by definition. And this is something that no one will change or influence. And that is super exciting. You talk about democratization at work in many companies. People might laugh at you if you go into the boardroom and talk about that. At least they might not really take you seriously. And in the back of their heads, they'll think, yeah, that sounds nice. We're definitely not doing that. That will, that's something we won't see in a DAO. And that is super exciting. I spoke about creating the space for people to contribute to their best, safe space for entrepreneurship. This, again, comes by definition with the DAO. That's something no one will influence. And this is incredibly exciting. And I mean, again, I started by saying I'm super excited about the fact that this is aimed at Africa, because I think this is what Africa really needs. I started studying my, and I'll back to DAO, but I think this is really ties into the whole question. I started studying in Cape Town, and I was absolutely astounded. And, I studied in Europe and Germany and in Spain as well. And I was super impressed with the level of people we had in Africa that didn't have access to well-paying jobs, that had to fight really hard to get any sort of opportunities because of, in my opinion, artificial things, because of complex organizations, because of basically people in Africa that I've come across experience so many complexities and difficulties to find ways in which they can contribute meaningfully. So I think this idea of creating DAOs in Africa that enable this, that provide this opportunity for people to contribute and be rewarded for it, is absolutely super crucial for the future. And that's, this excites me very much. And another thing I'll say, we spoke about it earlier, just before the stream, that I've been doing a lot of reading and, Twitter, crypto, DAOs. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of people saying different things. We need more doing. We need people to start DAOs and to build them and to do it. We need exactly what Waya is doing. We need a lot of action. And this excites me. So I think what we know at Resourceful Humans, we know a lot about the human side. So what does it take for contributors to work together in this way? Our tool is based on the fundamental, absolute prerequisites that you need, that we define network organizations by. So so we can really help with this side, but setting up this opportunity for people, this is what excites me so much about Waya and about DAOs in general, but specifically this one.
Yeah, really, we're also really happy, of course, for this partnership, because I think that we want to build this. We're really open to building this DAO in that way that we were both describing. And you're interested in, you have all of the knowledge already, all of these experiences of what can go wrong, what is necessary, what do you need to look at, and we can really learn from each other, making this possible. And for me, I think it's hard to put in words. It's hard to describe how it kind of fits into, and why it may fit into the African context. Let me say it like that. I think also what I learned here is that there's often a lot of hierarchies. At least I experienced that in Uganda. There's almost everyone is young, but for some reason, young people are not often really taken seriously. And there's also, even in the education system, there's a lot of hierarchies, especially in the formal work. And on the other hand, it's such a very dynamic business sector, because most people are actually working independently and are actually on ground and looking for what to do, because a large part of what's actually been done is just informal, and really putting that into a new way of what we're trying to do, giving more resources and the platform to do this, to really do what a lot of Africans are probably already doing, looking for work, looking how to contribute, but just kind of organizing this work in a better way, in a network organization way, in a DAO, and also additionally giving these resources that may not yet be there, may not be available to everyone. And of course, there are these organizations with a lot of hierarchies, but then because there's still this huge informal sector of people who still need to be employed, who are still looking and who have so much to give, who have so many resources, so much energy, that is really the possibility, I would say.
This part of people who have sorry, you must continue, but this part that have a lot to give, really talented individuals.
Absolutely. Amazing. So how does this collaboration with Waya really work for the actual contributors? So what are we actually doing right now together?
Well, the first thing that a contributor will get access to when wanting to contribute towards Waya is access to our, call it, infrastructure, which is called AIR, AIRH. And I mentioned a tool that's part of AIR called Network, where we map contributions within any given organization. To make it really simple, there are 3 views within Network, which is the core part of AIR that's important for this collaboration. There's a me view, so how do I manage my contributions and the work I'm doing? Here you can create contributions, you can manage your existing contributions. Again, contributions, I'm talking about projects, I'm talking about things that you're doing at work, that you're contributing. You can manage your own contributions, you can set up new ones, you can manage your workload, and there are many different features and things in there that are important for you, basically just to manage your own day-to-day. Then you've got a crew view where you can look at everyone you're working on contributions with. And here this is really central to working with people. If you don't have a hierarchy or unnecessary meetings, you need to basically have a snapshot of whatever is doing on a daily basis. So here you can set your intentions. What's the next thing I'm going to do either today, or basically the next thing I'm going to contribute towards Waya? You can set it there. You have an insight into the workloads and health of contributions. So how are different contributions going? And then there's a company view. And this is this part of transparency. This is something, technically a lot of clients battle with, is this company view that you can switch to, and you can have an overall view of what everyone is doing in the DAO and how everything is going. And as we onboard more and more contributors onto the tool, more and more data and insights start coming out. So we are able to see how our individual contributors are feeling, how overall contributions are going, what contributions are going towards what customers or stakeholders. And basically you have an instant, real-time, peer validated snapshot of the organization at any moment in time. So this snapshot gets more accurate as more and more people onboard and map what they are doing through the tool. I think the biggest difference to other tools that I've seen and know that kind of map projects and contributions in a similar way is that a lot of them are designed in a way that they're designed for a manager to manage the work of an employee. This is not at all what we're doing. We're trying to create an environment where individuals can manage their own work, and then have you as members of a DAO, and this would be the same for you, Antonia, as for someone who may join tomorrow and be onboarded in the tool, can get a snapshot of how everything's going. And that's super important. That's radical. That's transparency. So this is basically, this is a first step. This is the most important part, is working on this and mapping. And once we have, or not once, as we map everything, we have additional insights that we can share and we can look at together. And that's where the other insights, things that we spoke about, come. So you'll see certain trends, and then we sit down and we discuss the trends together. And this is basically, it's an ongoing thing. So it's super exciting. I was looking at the company view of Waya this morning, and it's already filling up, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really amazing. Simon always sends us or we always look at the contributions and kind of how it's growing, with this whole graph of everyone and what everyone is, the ideas they have, what they're working on, and it grows constantly. And I think that, yeah, so how it actually works for us as a contributor, you can, basically show up, apply, and once you get in, you see the purpose and the goal, and you can just think of anything that you believe you want to contribute that leads to this goal. And we have amazing projects coming up, something with NFTs, for example. And yeah, I think everyone there is really exploring their potential of what they can do. And yeah, I think it just gives so much, how should I say, yeah, power to everyone. And really, once I feel like always, and that's for me really what leadership is about. If you are given the space and the opportunity, and also the responsibility to create and explore, that's something so powerful. And I think, your head, if you're put in this position where you really, someone believes you can contribute, your head can like start running and be like, oh, what do I think is actually powerful, and then things can be put into place. And that's what's happening right now, and it's really, I think it's going well so far.
Exciting, yeah. And you mentioned two things: creativity, freedom, and responsibility. And it's all those things. And it's very, very exciting.
Amazing. So we haven't had any questions yet in the chat, but there is an Ask Me Anything right now. So if you have any questions to the listeners right now and you want to ask it, you can write a comment either on YouTube or LinkedIn, and we will see it and we'll answer it. And if anything is unclear, if you want to know more about something specific, you can write. And we're going to wait for a bit to see if questions are coming. But yeah, and maybe a little bit more about the crypto part, because in the end, we are also a crypto company. And how did you first kind of learn that DAOs are really fit very well into what you're doing?
Well, I don't think any organization can ignore crypto right now. So, I mean, look, we have a contribution in our own Resourceful Humans network, where it's about looking at how we can maybe move one of our products onto crypto, onto blockchain, moving away from centers and, regaining some control that we've now given to, that you naturally give to third-party hosts, etc. So we do explore ourselves in the field. And again, this is exciting that one of our contributors, so actually someone who had recently created this contribution. DAOs are super interesting. So we have a lot of people in the field talking about it, but again, I spoke about it earlier, very little being done. So if you talk to an investor in HR tech, or you talk about the word DAO will pop up and there'll be an interest, okay, what's going on there? But it seems to be a little bit of a cloudy field. For us, I think this idea of autonomous by design. I think one of the saddest things that I mentioned an HP example of network organization earlier. I love the HP story. The HP story is very close to Resourceful Humans because one of our founders grew up in the HP environment. His father was at the head of HR at HP. So it's very close to everything we do at Resourceful Humans. And for me, it's very sad that it's no longer like that today, because I love those stories. I find them super exciting. I watched some black and white videos of management talks back in the day at HP, and they excite me very much. And they were doing things back then that we call new work today. Sadly, this died with the founders. And this is what I think separates a DAO, that you cannot destroy this, that it's written into the blockchain, it's written into the code. And once you start understanding this and understanding that things are dealt with through smart contracts and not through individuals, and you can vote, and again, by design, it's democratic, then very quickly you establish these links to democratization at work, to network organizations, and to autonomous peer commits. So I think it's a very, very natural connection. I think that it'll be it'll be something that will take I'm going to use the word traditional companies quite long to wake up to. And I think we're on to something very, very special and exciting here. So, you see a lot of trends in crypto, you see a lot of talks. I don't think this is anything you can call a trend. I think this is the start of a completely new way of working, in the sense people have worked like this before, but in the way that it's designed and that it cannot be broken and it cannot be, influenced by individuals.
Yeah. I think the robustness is very, very powerful. It's not dependent. It's for people to contribute, to explore their potential, but it cannot be destroyed by some individuals who are hungry for too much power. And we see it all the time that things go south go wrong by a couple of people who destroy it, and DAOs cannot do that. So the robustness is really, really powerful.
Yeah, not only destroy it, but just get lost. I mean, I know that there's certain organizations. I don't think anyone purposely destroyed certain parts. Going back to the HP story, you can think of other stories. I don't think those were necessarily purposefully destroyed. But sometimes to run a network organization, we spoke about leadership, what it takes from leadership before, and that it takes individuals with power right at the top to design a certain way of working. We have one client, I'm not going to mention the name here, but that has a CEO that's absolutely driven to run their organization as a network organization. If he was to go into retirement next week, that would get lost. Not because of anyone malicious necessarily trying to destroy it, but just because it takes such a drive from an individual.
Yeah.
And this is just adding to that. That's an element that that it can't get lost. It's written in the code and it's transparent for everyone to see and understand before they sign on to anything.
Absolutely. I think there are no questions coming up, which is very fine. If anyone watching this now or later, if you have any questions, you can always write a comment either on YouTube, LinkedIn, or just reach out to us on Twitter, on Discord, on Telegram, wherever you like best. And if you, as an interested person in the Waya DAO and Waya Collective, if you want to actually join this team of contributors, if you want to be part of that DAO very early on right now, you can, the easiest way to join is really to join our community town hall every Thursday in the Discord. It starts at 5 p.m. UTC, which is 7 p.m. Central European time and 8 p.m. East African time. So there you will be welcomed with open arms, and you can just learn more and ask questions how you specifically can contribute, and you can also apply immediately. We're just setting up that structure that you can just apply to become a contributor. So there's many ways to get into it right now. And with that, I would say thank you so much, Rasmus. It was really amazing having you here. I learned a lot as well. Really kind of putting this, what it really is and what it means and what's important about it. Really conceptualizing. Really amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Antonia. And I really look forward to seeing more and more contributors visualized with their ideas, contribution projects in the tool. Maybe even some people listening today or listening to this later. Really excited for what is to come at Waya.
Absolutely. Then I see everyone next week, and have a great week, everyone, and thank you so much for joining.
Cheers.
Bye.